my name is Kat, and today I'm going to talk about my writing process. It is NaNoWriMo Day 4, and the word count goal for today is 6,667 words. I am currently at 6,254 words, so I do have a little bit more writing to do. I've actually been kind of struggling to stay on track, which is not how I like to operate. I'm hoping I can get like a real good writing day in here pretty soon and get a little bit ahead and kind of ease some of the stress of being consistently a little bit behind. Though being just a little bit behind is much better than being like a lot behind. I hit my cup. LOL. But I do want to remind you guys not to get too discouraged even if you are behind, whether it's by a little or a lot. Maybe you only have a couple thousand words at this point, but don't let that make you feel like giving up. It is really intimidating when you're behind, but you have to push aside the fears and the worry and instead focus on passion and drive. It's hard. It's really, really hard. I know, but you have to keep going. Don't let yourself be defeated, especially not this early on. Even if you have 0 words right now, you could write 2,000 a day for the rest of the month and still win NaNoWriMo. So whatever you do, no matter how far behind or how far ahead you are, good for you and everything, but just for the people who are behind more than you, keep writing! So for today's topic, I want to talk a bit about my writing process. In my last video, I talked about writing fast, and some of you guys were wondering how I write without using proper grammar and punctuation and whatnot. And I wanted to clarify my process a little bit, so I'm gonna. But I'm gonna start from the beginning of my writing process, not just the drafting part, because every single writer has a slightly different method for writing, and I wanted to share mine. And maybe you'll find that interesting, I hope so. So first off, I am an outliner. I am 100% pro outline. I've already made a couple of videos detailing my outlining process, so I'm not going to get into it in too much depth right now, but brief overview. I start with a 3-act structure, and then I divide each act into 3s for a total of 9 story blocks. Then I divide each of those blocks into 3 again for a total of 27 chapters. And each chapter has a purpose that moves the story forward. Like there's an inciting incident chapter, and a couple of plot twist chapters, and a darkest moment chapter. And again, if you're interested in details, I will link some videos in the description that you can check out to learn more about my outlining structure. But anyways, I start with a fairly detailed outline. For my current story, my outline ended up being around 7,000 words. And I knew generally what was going to happen in each chapter, but it's during this first rough draft that I figure out the specifics. I will give you an example. In my introduction chapter, I have a scene with my main character Juliet, her father, and her brother Jonah. My outline for the scene was something like, Dad and Jonah getting ready to hunt, planning battle strategies. Juliet offers input, they like her plan. Then Juliet suggests going with them to help. No, absolutely not. She has to stay, they leave without her. That's about 35 words or so that will end up being expanded into like 400 words in a final draft. I estimate that my 7,000 word outline is going to end up being around an 80,000 word novel. So I take that 35 word outline and I write my rough draft. I figure out the details, like how the conversation is going to go and how Jonah and Dad say their goodbyes. And my rough draft of this scene with sloppy punctuation and grammar looks a little bit like this. I'm only going to show this for a couple of seconds, so go ahead and pause if you want to check it out. Just don't judge me too harshly. I know it's not great, but it's a start. As you can see, I still haven't worked out all of the details. Like, I still have no idea what this battle strategy is going to be, but I do have a solid blueprint for how this scene will go. I do use periods and commas and some quotation marks, but you can see what I mean about sloppy punctuation and grammar. There's that bit of dialogue in the middle that has no quotation marks at all, and there's sentences like, rush off, which obviously need to be expanded. A lot of the dialogue is kind of clunky and awkward, like people don't really talk that way, but the intent is there. I know what my characters are trying to say, and in revisions I can polish this up and find a better way to get my point across. So that's my rough draft. In draft 2, I will clean all this up and add the proper punctuation and grammar and dialogue tags. Then, in my third draft, I will really consider each sentence and try to figure out the best way to word it. Then, draft 4 and beyond is just nitpicky polishing. But for the first rough draft, I just repeat that process of taking my outline and expanding it. Some parts require much more expansion than others. Like in my outline, I have a couple sentences that say things like, "Cool battle scene!" So obviously that requires a bit of work. But in my rough draft, it is not uncommon for me to just skip details that I don't know right away. My rough draft will end up with sentences like, "We pull into brackets city name at dawn," or something like, "He smirks and says, brackets, witty comeback." But yeah, that is my basic writing process. I start with a fairly detailed outline, then I go scene by scene, expanding it into a rough draft. Then I smooth out the roughness a little bit, and then I get to polishing. And each step in my process takes much longer than the previous one. Creating my outline usually takes several hours over a few days or like a week or so as I figure out what my story is about. The rough draft phase does take a lot longer than the outlining phase, but like I said in my last video, I do like to rush this process a bit by writing fast and messy, but because my rough draft is so messy, the smoothing out phase does take a while. It's after this smoothing out phase that I feel comfortable enough to share my work with my trusted critique partners, who, by the way, are amazing, wonderful, lovely people, and I hope they never ever leave me. But I want to get feedback on the story and characters before I get into the polishing stage. I don't want to spend hours polishing a scene just to end up having to cut it later. So in between the smoothing out stage and the polishing stage, I get some feedback. And then the polishing stage is, of course, the most time-consuming stage of my writing life. Like, I will contemplate a single paragraph for an hour, and I still might not be done with it at the end of that. Oh, revisions. Anyways, I hope your writing is going well, you are getting those words done. But yeah, that is everything I wanted to talk about today, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope you have a great night, and I will have another video up tomorrow, so I will see you then. Goodbye!